It's a Friday morning. Hope your day is going well here so far. 18 minutes after the hour. Another revelation to tell you about this morning on the initial actions by police during Nova Scotia's mass shooting in mid-April last year. Researcher Ken Summers writes for the Nova Scotia Advocate. He says police were ordered to wait outside of the killing zone in Portapique that Saturday night. Wait for an emergency response team to arrive. But that didn't happen well for several hours. Ken Summers joins me on the phone here this morning to tell us more about this. Ken, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
And how are you today?
Good. I'm in my chair overlooking the Bay of Fundy.
Be a nice
gray.
I'm sure it'd be very gray, but still a nice, relaxing scene to be looking out over the water. That's for sure. You write in the latest your latest piece here, Ken. You say what RCMP command have never reported is that they were exercising a protocol for the safety of officers. Only trained emergency response teams are actively to go into an active shooter situation. Command stuck to this protocol despite knowing it would take hours before the Dartmouth ERT could mobilize and reach Portapique. Also evident from actions at both Portapique and at Hunter Road the next day is that these protocols do not specify what other RCMP officers at and near the scenes are supposed to do while waiting for an ERT to arrive, not even mandating the basic precaution of closing off exits available to a shooter. So they just, milled around for several hours waiting for this ERT team, Ken, to show up?
Well, let me say first that I do often write for the Advocate, but not in this case.
All right.
So they, in fact, just about no media, including alternative media, wants to touch me. So that's a story in itself. But yes, at Portapique, there's quite a few things that have come out and are pretty much in public that are pretty, that's not a bad description of milling around.
Oh, are you there, Ken? I think we just lost him. Katie, you want to try that again and see if we can get him back on the line? Oh, no, there, he's gone for sure now. Anyway, he writes again about this situation. He says, during the night, RCMP command came to the erroneous conclusion that the shooter had burnt all of his replica RCMP vehicles and had himself perished. Dartmouth ERT was then sent home, and no replacement ERT was brought to the scene or mobilized to depart quickly. Again, it does seem that because of this particular protocol, that when the RCMP officers first responded, and this was just after 10 o'clock at night, I think the first 911 call from Portapique came in at just after 10 o'clock, and the first officers arrived on the scene at 10:26, according to what I'm reading here. Ken, are you back with us now?
Yep.
Good. I don't know what happened there, but continue with the story here. Basically, these RCMP officers who first responded, and as I just mentioned, the first 911 call came in just after 10 o'clock that Saturday night. The ERT team did not show up for another couple hours, so these officers who were there just milled about, basically.
In the initial, let's break this down into the critical period when the shooter is still inside. It's a large subdivision, essentially, very spread out. But it's a large subdivision that extends a few kilometers down from the highway. And so they were out at the entrance, waiting for instructions. The only instructions we know of is that they were not to go in, and to wait for the ERT, emergency response team, to arrive from Dartmouth. And during the critical period, they hadn't even left yet from Dartmouth. So, and there's a long drive ahead.
Yeah.
You mentioned what the RCMP claim is that the first call is at 10:01, 911 call. They had calls at least 45 minutes before that.
Someone reporting a fire, basically, earlier, right?
And shots fired later than that. At 10:01, there's an EHS call, the emergency health, basically the first responders, about telling residents to leave and go to Great Village Fire Department if they can leave safely. So this is a developed situation at that point. And so there were calls about fires by at least 9:15, and a very large visible fire, which would be Wortman's own warehouse and house, is what he torched first. And these are big wooden structures, so they were very visible fires. By 9:30, there were reports of shots fired. And by 9:30, the Great Village Fire Department was told to stand down. No fire people ever came. And they got calls by 9:15, so, normally they would have been on site by 9:30.
Yeah, and the first officers didn't arrive on the scene till almost 10:30.
That's what they say, but that's not true.
All right, when were the first officers on the scene?
I don't really know yet. For my own sanity, I had to give up digging into this. But I, from what I can piece together, and is that I would put it at, by 9:30 they begin to arrive.
Obviously, Ken, all of this, these reports from you and many others detailing, and we're not sure how accurate or inaccurate. Some of it's speculation and such. So we're hoping and expecting, at least I am, that this information will all be coming out at the public inquiry when it gets going here. Do you agree with that? I mean, what are you expecting from this inquiry? Do you think it will get to the bottom of what really happened that night?
Yeah, I'll definitely speak to that. If it's feasible, I'd like to come on again sometime. It takes so long to dig into the details of any one event, like at Portapique. So, those are good, valid questions. How do I know these things? I'll say just quickly, I know 10:01 as first call is a lie. I know that 10:26 as first arrival is a lie. The 10:26 one, the person who was shot by Wortman and survived came out at 10:26, and there were several police officers already there. So, and that's in the warrants that have been, dug out of court documents. So we know that's not true. Anyway, as far as the inquiry, which is the only place we have a chance where this will all finally be resolved, unlike most of the victims' family members I have talked to, they don't have a lot of faith that this is the only thing they have, but I have a little more confidence that they do, that we will get the facts of what happened, pretty much. But, that's over 2 years from now, and that's very meaningful, because one of the things that the inquiry is predictably will not deal with is the questions of cover-up, which I raise in my article. We can't really get off into it, but I've given a lot of detail on the evidence for that cover-up. My guess is there won't be very much about that.
Well, that's where we hope that the lawyers come into play here, and that the lawyers for the family members, for example, that they'll ask these kinds of questions to get this kind of information out.
Well, I don't know about that process, but for the rest of us in the public, at least, that's not going to be quick either. And so basically, and lawyers and their clients have different interests than the public do. And so we really need the inquiry to also look into let's not assume there's a cover-up, but it has to be considered and carefully examined. And I don't think that's going to happen. So basically, what I think we're going to get is a true picture of what happened, which is damning of the RCMP, but that the truth will be all out there. But the RCMP, and with nothing about them covering their tracks, really, there'll be some recommendations, but the inquiry isn't really empowered. It will make recommendations, but it's not going to devote resources to that. So by the time this all comes out, as the RCMP has done many times in the past, they'll be able to have sandbagged themselves from the effects.
And I'm going to have to stop you there because I'm out of time here, Ken, but you're right. We'll have to get you in again for a longer period of time to get into some more detail on this. But I appreciate you joining us here this morning and telling us what you have told, and again, just raising more questions about what the RCMP did that night, and questions again about just how much detail we're going to get out of this public inquiry.
Okay.
Thank you for the time, sir. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
All right, take care, bud. Bye-bye. Ken Summers, and again, written a piece here on the Portapique massacre and raising some questions, as many are. And again, we hope that we get these answers when this inquiry gets up and running, and hopefully it's sooner than 2 years down the road yet. All right, 2 minutes.